Hey everybody, it's Stephanie from the Learning Project. I had a weird little glitch there, so if you saw me say hey twice, hey. Today I have Keyonia Williams. You guys, I am so excited about this segment that we are starting. We're going to be talking a lot about mental health, but we're really going to be putting a large focus on women. We're going to be talking about labor, pregnancy, postpartum. We're going to be talking about these different journeys because there's so many people that are going through things and they're like, what do I do and how do I get through this process? And Keyonia, who I've known for a very long time, she has her own business, and I really want to explore what she does in the mental health world and share a little bit about her business, you guys. If you do not have a piece of paper and a pencil, get one, listen, whatever, go back to this segment and listen to it. It's going to be really filled with tons of gems, and I really am excited to learn more. Keyonia, welcome to the Learning Project. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me again. It's an honor.
Yes. And so for those that don't know, we did do a podcast series together. We talked about her birth journey, my birth journey. And so you can catch that link right below and actually take a listen to it. So it's really good. Keyonia, tell us a little bit about your business, the name, when you started it, like what made you start it? Like, let's just start all the big ball of questions.
Okay. So my business is called Healing Black Souls. And so I've been working, specifically for Healing Black Souls, I would say at least the last 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. But I officially started it and established it and became an LLC June of this year. I mean, it was a long time coming, but yes, June 19, 2021, I officially became Healing Black Souls LLC. So, wow. Yes. And so the reason why I started Healing Black Souls was, I've been a social worker for the last 15 years, and I have worked with an abundance of people in various capacities: mental health. I've, done case management, foster care, foster home licensing, parenting classes, individual therapy, group therapy, worked with clients with an array of, issues. And so, through that experience, I learned about, the lack of resources or, what the resources were that were provided in the community for, different groups of people. And so I would say the last 10 years, I decided that I was going to focus on Black mental health specifically. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is, I always knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I felt like I needed to get some experience, get some exposure to, the larger social work system, so to speak. And so over the last 10 years, I've really focused on Black mental health specifically. And one of the main reasons why is because, Black mental health is impacted by oppression and racism in this society. Mm-hmm. That is the root of that is the root of the impacts of our mental health specifically. Mm-hmm. And so I've really focused on, what does that really mean? What does that really look like, especially in terms of support and treatment? And so, we have negative stigma associated or tied to, Black folks in accessing mental health services, rightfully so. Right. Especially given the history in this country and the things that we've experienced and the experimentation, and I could go on for days. Yeah. And so really understanding that the way that we approach mental health in this society doesn't work for Black folks. Let's just be clear on that. Yeah. Going to sit in an office and talk to someone for an hour once a week is one aspect of mental health, and I'm not downplaying it. And I feel like that can help and support folks. Absolutely. But through my, learning and my experience, it's more of, relationship building and education and resources specific concrete resources. Like people need money, people need food, people need housing, access to those things. They need those things. They need access to those things. They need to be able to attain those things and maintain those things. And so for me, so that is what made me shift from like, you know, seeing individual clients moving more towards educating folks on understanding mental health from an Afrocentric perspective and not understanding mental health from a Eurocentric perspective, which is how I was trained, right? And in this society, you have to have these credentials and these licenses. And I went through all of that, right? And obtained all of that, but also had to do a lot of unlearning and realizing like that doesn't work. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for my people. And so being able to shift professionally to meet the needs specifically of Black people. So
can we put a pin in that? That was so packed, okay? That I'm telling y'all, I need to take a second. That was so jam-packed on so many levels. Let's talk about one of those levels. What is it about mental health that really blocks Black people from seeking help? Because I know in my own personal journey of health, mental health, there were things that I came up against, which were stigmas that are within the Black community. We don't go to counseling. We don't take medication. We don't, whatever happens in our house stays in our house. These are some of the toxic pieces that come into our minds or we're taught, but there's always a link to why those things were why those things were said. And one of them that I just learned was, one of the things that whatever happens in the house stays in the house, that definitely has a huge stigma to slavery. You don't say nothing, you act like nothing happened, you work through your trauma or you ignore your trauma, you normalize the trauma. So you have all of these different pieces. So for you, Keyonia, when you are helping people understand, because there might be some listeners that are like, all people deal with this. Like, what is it about within like the Black community that you have seen that really focus or center around these biases or stereotypes that people hold close to, and it really blocks them from going out and getting help in any kind of form or fashion?
So yeah, that was a lot that you just said, Stephanie. The stigmas and the like, Black people don't take medication or Black people don't go to therapy, like all that stuff is true, but there's a flip side. We do have some Black folks going to therapy and actually getting traumatized and taking medication because they're getting misdiagnosed because they're going to folks that don't understand Black mental health. So there's that too, right? So, but for me specifically, my emphasis turned into educating Black folks about mental health, because when we think about mental health, we think about therapy and we think about medication. So before we even get there, like, first of all, mental health is everything. It's your environment. It's the people that you're around, right? It's generational, which we don't talk about that. It's generational. There are things that our ancestors did that still haven't, that they did and that they experienced that still have an impact on us. There are things that we do, there are ways that we respond, and we don't realize that that's connected to people that we might have never even met before, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, we just continue to do things. Well, this is how my mom did it, so this is how I'm going to do it with my children. Not understanding what those type of things are rooted in, right? And so for me, it's more about learning and understanding mental health from that perspective. Like on a very, like, before we start going to see professionals, before we start talking about medication, before we start calling folks crazy, we need to understand, like, our health, like mental health in terms of health. Like, are you well? What are you experiencing? What have you gone through? Like, what does day-to-day life look like to you? Because like you said, we've been conditioned to operate and function in trauma and not realize that it's trauma because it's been so normalized. We think that is a part of, like, it's just normal for us, right? So like you said, keeping secrets or keeping things like inside the home. back way before our times, those things happened for safety reasons in terms of like slavery, right? And then it just carried on. And so then it became a toxic thing, right? Because I imagine that, during those times, don't say anything, keep your mouth shut meant something way different than it means today.
Yes.
So the generational curses and the generational aspect of mental health is something that, is not addressed in modern or, whatever, Eurocentric mental health. It's just, you have to treat the whole person in conjunction with their place in society. And so, for example, you can't work with it is my opinion that you cannot work with Black folks in a mental health capacity and not talk about racism and oppression and anti-Blackness.
Absolutely.
Like, you just can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Black folks really that don't understand those things. And for me, that's why it's important for them to understand, because there are a lot of Black folks experiencing symptoms of depression, of, sadness, anxiety, and they're not even aware of it because that has become their normal level of functioning.
Wow.
So they don't, like, they've never been in a situation or an environment that has allowed them to just decompress or to just be, or to experience peace or to experience joy. Like, so they don't know that they are not experiencing those things. They don't know that they deserve to experience those things. They don't know that they need access to experience those things to be their best selves. And so all of that is mental health, right? Mental health is all of that. Like being able to have a healthy childhood, having access to healthy food, having access to resources, having access to, healthy housing, like all of that is mental health.
Y'all, we coming in this morning.
So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, it did, because you know what? We are not having the question. We're always using like a lot of buzzwords like safe spaces and let's have open dialogue or open communication.
Or self-care.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to have that conversation when you can't even identify it, you haven't experienced it, or you are not connecting with it, because you can be in those places and not connect with it, not fully indulging, engaging with your senses, everything in those pieces of self-care. A lot of times we talked about this on one of my podcast a long time ago. We talked about how Black women got a lot of self-care and continues to, and shout out to Lizzo. She came out with that song. I'm gonna mess up the lyrics, don't judge me. And she says, shampoo press, get you out of my hair. And that one sentence, that phrase is so important, because a lot of people would go to their hairdressers, would go to these family gatherings. That's how we got like counseling, and that's how we got self-care, being able to come into a beauty shop and look a hot diggity dog mess, and then all of a sudden, you come out, you feel good, you got somebody really like working you through a process. And so my hairdresser, she cut her hours back and she got super booked up, right? And I remember like needing to get my hair done, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go to somebody else. And it was literal like torture. It is torture. Anybody who has to touch my hair that I don't normally go to, it is torture. And so I go into this hair shop, and my soul like begins to cry, because this person's not talking to me. This person's like, just like nonchalant. Let me wash your hair. Let me blow dry your hair. Let me press your hair. And I walked out and I didn't feel like myself that I normally done going to the hair shop. And I think that's one of the things that is something that we have to recognize, which is, I keep saying this, which is we need to break out of the traditional model of mental health and be open to other types of mental health that other people may not, or the large media may not identify with, but it allows people to choose how they want to heal, how they want to process, and how they want to move forward in life. But we've got to stop having a one size fit all.
Absolutely.
Just we are all human. We all bleed the same blood. We all have, experiences that shape us. But at the end of the day, we are unique individuals. Even if we're Black, we come from the same sector. We all have different pieces that are going to work for us and are going to help develop us and grow us. But if we do not take the time to actually dive into that and develop that and have access to those pieces, we can't really move forth and do what we need to do to heal and really grow on our journey.
Absolutely. And the key to that is, yes, access, but also education around knowing what you need, and education around being able to have the support that you need to access it. Because we talk about healing a lot, but a lot of folks don't understand what that really means, right? And some people don't know that that's what they need. And so people have been accustomed to surviving and and thinking that that's living, right? Because they've never had the experience to really thrive, and access joy and access pleasure in the way that we deserve to.
Wow. Oh man. You said something that was really interesting, which is understanding how to access these pieces and understand how to educate yourself. One of the research projects that we were looking at was the survey questions that women are asked during and after, I would say, their pregnancy. So they come in, they ask you a couple questions that are focused around, like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling levels of suicide? Are you feeling depressed? Like, they're trying to identify and pinpoint if you're having any postpartum issues, and they are trying to provide interventions. What questions do you feel like we're missing during that piece of mental health for women that are going through postpartum?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, those check boxes that they ask all women, but Black women in particular, about, are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling overwhelmed? First of all, I think it's safe to say that all Black women, and I can only speak from that perspective because I am Black, right? And so it's like, yeah, all those things are true for someone who just had a baby, who, hormones are going, haywire. All those things are true. I feel like really it's about the support. It's about the support in terms of, like, does that woman have what she needs to be successful in terms of, like, adjusting to motherhood, right? Does she have family? Does she have, a doula? Does she have, a supportive partner? Does she have a community around her that is caring for her, bringing her meals, or, cleaning, making sure that, supporting her in if she's breastfeeding, if she's, deciding to formula feed, just really support. I think that is, I don't think that the sadness, the depression, all that, because that's hormonal, that's chemical. We can't control it. And I think it impacts us all differently. Right. So to me, what's important is that we have a support of people around us, like rallying around us to, because all those needs that support in terms of the feeding, support in terms of mom caring for herself, being able to at least take a shower, someone to hold the baby, someone to prepare her, a special meal, because that's also a part of her getting back to healing her body and her womb after she's given birth. Creating a peaceful and serene environment, are there people around to support with that? And so I feel like, in terms of, like, those check boxes that they, ask at the hospital after you've had the baby, it's like, that's just what they are. They're check boxes, right? Yeah. Because and that to me goes back to the non-traditional way of practicing mental health and viewing mental health. Because for me, if I'm seeing a mom postpartum, or, before, after birth, these are the conversations that we're gonna, be having. Like, what are some things that you can put in place? Because we already know, like, it's gonna be a different time, right? It's gonna be more vulnerable time, I'll say. So, what are some things that you have in place, right, to support you, right? And if are you talking to someone? Are you talking, seeing a therapist, or do you have a doula? Do you have a support of women around you that can love on you and support you through this very vulnerable, sacred time?
Oh, the two words that literally just said sacred and vulnerable. Like, if there was a way to describe postpartum, it is absolutely that, sacred and vulnerable. I literally have been journeying, everybody that's been watching my journey, you guys know that I have dealt with infertility for over 7 years, and then I just had a baby. She's almost 3 months at this point. I know, I'm so excited for her to be here in my life. And one of the things that I was really thrown off by these questions was, and let me partner with this. So I've also been reading this book by Kimberly Johnson. It's called The Fourth Trimester, and it talks about women not having a Superman complex. And we even talked about this, Keyonia, before the podcast started. We were talking about the bounce back. There's this praise for you to be able to, be everything for all people and be the super mom and be this and be that. In one part, it talks about vulnerability, and it talks about during your fourth trimester, really women should have the opportunity to just lay and do nothing and be catered to and be able to be cared and nurtured for, right? I have a huge confession. I hate when people take care of me. I do not like when people care for me. If people ask me like, hey, let me bring you something, or hey, let me do something for you, I'm very like, no, I'm got that. I'm good. Like, I'm fine. Like, you don't need to help me. And so I started reflecting back on my journey when I first, had my baby. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, do this, do this, do this. And they're like, you can't do that. You just had a C-section. Like, you're not allowed to pick that up. You just had a C-section. You're not allowed to do this. You just had a C-section. And I was trying to I felt like I need to show people, like, I'm not lazy. I can do things. I can do this. And my mom came over one morning because she was coming over every morning, clean my house, get my day set up or whatever. And she was like, girl, she was like, you do not have to do this. You have a husband here. You have your mom. You got your doula. You got all this family that's trying to cook you meals. And I would not take any of the help. None. Mm-hmm. And I really had to do some seeking, like soul searching. And I think one of the things is it goes back to what you feel like you deserve,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You feel like you deserve to be loved on. You feel like, do you love yourself? How do you care for yourself? How, when people are trying to care for you, do you receive it? And she talked about like being open, like with open hands, and basically saying, I will receive whatever anybody's giving me within a certain healthy boundary. That they're trying to help me. And that is what that piece is about. It's sacred. It's a very supportive journey piece of our labor, and we just don't have it. And I think for Black women particularly, that is a very hard thing.
And
weakness, you can't show weakness. It's not good to let people love on you and dote on you and care for you, because it's a form of weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're saying all of that, because it's all, again, connected to our mental health. And it is, a demonstration of, where we are, how we are impacted in this society as Black women. Like, we don't, there's not place for us to be cared for. There's not a place for us to be vulnerable. There's not a place for us to just be, really. Just to be sad, to need, there's not many spaces for us to need help, for us to ask for help, right? For us to access joy, for us to access our higher selves. And all of that includes being cared for, being loved on, like
Yes.
being in a place where you're just like at your lowest place and allowing folks to come in and support you and love on you. Yep. And to be honest, a lot of us don't have that. And a lot of us don't know we need that. A lot of us need permission to take that kind of space. But, you know, the impacts of growing up with a mom that you've never seen cry or that you've never seen ask for help, right? Just all of these messages that we receive in the society that is not supportive of Black women. It's not supportive of us thriving and being well, right? It's not supportive of us. And I'm saying Black people in general, but right now we're talking about Black women. So that's why I'm saying women. But it's not, you know, supportive. The fact that we have the lowest birth outcomes than any women, than anyone in society, even you and I, who have master's degrees and who have resources and who have lots of resources, our birth outcomes are still not as good as a poor white woman on welfare. There's a reason for that, right? And so we have to, that's why we have to have these conversations. That's why I feel I'm so passionate about the work that I do in terms of mental health, because that is the way in which we need to talk about mental health. It's like like you said, going to something as small, and I'm using small for the sake of the conversation because it's not small, but something as small as being able to go to the hair salon with a woman that you've built a great rapport with, where you feel like she's your sister, and you look forward to that experience. You look forward to spending that time with her. I'm saying that because I know I have the same thing with my lactation. But it's like those things, we deserve that experience that we have, that the way that fills your soul, the way that fills your cup. Those are the type of experiences that we as Black women need to have it shouldn't be once a week. It shouldn't be once a month. That is how we should be experiencing life on a larger scale. And absolutely. And that's the problem, is there's not a lot of spaces in this society and in this world for us to be able to access that level of like soul feeling goodness.
Yes. And I mean, even on just our part as a community, we have so much work that we need to do by opening these spaces and be willing to bring in our own spaces and not wait for somebody to create them. As a community say, you know what, let's make these spaces. And that's something that I really am excited about during this project, being able to talk to people about how to support one another. You know, this is a huge agenda, I feel like, that we need to focus on, because there's so much going on in the world. Like you were saying, like there's so much going on. We need these spaces to, first of all, defrag, and then second of all, to rebuild, to refocus, and to see ourselves in a different light, and be able to move together as with somebody. That's really important.
Right. And so for me, I feel like it's not going to be something that's handed to us. Right. And so a huge part of my motivation is, you know, I have created that for myself in my life, a support system, a place where I can thrive and I can access joy and all that. Right. And it's like teaching other folks how to create that. Right. Especially folks that have experienced such traumatic events in their lives with other people. And so how do you start to trust people, start to build a community that is going to support you, and just creating those spaces for you to have experiences that feed your soul. And I'm not saying it like it's an easy task, but I do feel like having folks like us first be an example, because I mean you can't just you have to be an example, right? Be an example of thriving, living well, accessing joy, right? Be an example, and then letting people know, like, I have barriers too, just like you. And here are some things, here are some resources to help you to start to build and access that joy as well. There's some, things you have to get out of the way that's blocking you, right? But ultimately understanding that gets you to a place of liberation and just feeling good about who you are, but also being real about the fact that there's a lot of spaces that we have to navigate and be in that are not going to ever be that for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, what does that look like? What does, trying to access this level of healing and doing well while also still having to navigate those places that don't support that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the real work, like supporting folks through that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it becomes like, then you have folks starting to build their own businesses and go branch off so that they don't have to, access those spaces that might be associated with their livelihood, for example.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot. It's a whole lot. It's convoluted, but in my mind, everything starts with mental health. If you're not well mentally, right? If you are not aware of what's going on, if you're not aware of your surroundings, if you're not aware of the anti-Blackness in the society, you will not be able to be successful with anything and anything. It starts with a healthy mind.
Yes, absolutely. In your journey, I mean, this is a huge, even though you have your own business, you choose how many clients you want to take on. It's a huge task, and mentally, it has to be a lot on you, especially when there are certain clients that maybe like you just have such a heart for them. I'm pretty sure you have a heart for everybody that you work with. That's why you take them as clients. But one of the things that we spoke about in a couple of our meetings during this planning of this segment is there's a lot of Black businesses that have closed down, or Black businesses that start moving away from certain sectors because it's so traumatic on them. It's very taxing on their mental health. So how do you navigate yourself in the mental health space as a creator, developer, business owner, supporter, advocate, consultant?
All the things.
So, how do you navigate yourself and really ensure that you are keeping yourself in a space that allows you to be your authentic self, be your best self for your business and the people you work with?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, again, it goes back to a support system. I have an abundance of Black mental health providers who are like-minded. Like, our mission and vision is Black folks, the liberation and the healing of Black folks. And so I'm connected with them. We talk all the time. We spend a lot of time together. We collaborate. I feel like we talk about how, working in this field impacts us, right? Of course, I think we all have our own mental health therapists that look like us, of course, and that are driven in the way that we are. So I think that those pieces are important, and putting in a structure to make sure that I am still accessing all my joy, in taking care of myself and pouring into myself and doing things that make me happy, doing things that make me feel good. So hopefully that answers your question. I think that I think that for me, the biggest part of this work is really because I'm passionate about it. I always have been, and I feel like I'm always going to do it in some capacity, probably until the day that I die, right? And so I feel like the biggest part is having other, and they're not all therapists. Most of the professional people that are professional folks, and they are my friends, are passionate about Black folks and the liberation of Black folks in some aspect, whether that be mental health, whether that be financial, whether that be education. And so I feel like spending time with them and talking with them is really, really important and pouring into me, because I think sometimes we are our worst critics.
Yes.
And so having people reflect that, like, no, you're doing amazing. I went to your training. It was absolutely amazing. Sharing resources, sharing materials, like, oh my God, just kind of working together and really, really being innovative and being like creative. And it's like, okay, brainstorming, figuring out how to always do the work better, how to always, even, I went to this, this silent retreat for Black women, and man, I just, talking about how it, help them expand the way that they see themselves in the work
Yes.
and as a mom. And so just being able to have those supports to because really it's my idea that if you are a Black person and you are passionate about Black folks and you work specifically for Black folks in any capacity, your professional work and your personal life really are not separate. I mean, they are, but in a sense they really are not. And so I feel like that's why it's important to have that support, because it's like you really never get away from it, right? Because I really never, I don't ever get away from being a Black woman in this society. And so everything that I do is motivated by that. And so it's like, so it's, for me, it's even more intentional to take space where I can access my joy and just decompress, because I am the work. The work is in me and it's always happening. And so, being able to be intentional about taking care of myself.
Oh my goodness. This is so jam-packed, you guys. And one of the reasons why I keep saying this, because it's literally all of the different levels and pieces that we're struggling with to get to that mental health piece. We've been talking a lot about peer support, and literally that's what we are to one another. We're peer supports. We're helping each other through a situation because we've experienced it or something similar, and we help each other get through it. And sometimes it's great to have somebody that has never experienced what you've experienced, and they're able to help expand your mind and help you level up. And that's important. How do you get in that space of being able to receive that help and that support without feeling that competitiveness? I think during my process of building my business, I really always was like, oh, I don't want to do this because, they may take this idea or they might do this, or, oh, I don't want to do this because, what if they do this? What is, like, I didn't see people as a support network for me. I didn't see that. And when somebody had brought it to my attention, I was like, oh my goodness, this is blocking everything. What can people do, or what do you, especially in business, because we're talking about a little bit about business, talking about mental health, and I know competitiveness is a huge piece of mental health for Black women that are in a business arena, and they may not want to connect with other people. Like, what is that block, and have you experienced it? And if you haven't, or you don't have any real input on it, but that's okay. But
no, I want to address that question. For me, I see, Black folks are not doing well. And so for me, in terms of like mental health, especially from an Afrocentric perspective, there needs to be a lot more of us. So for me, it's not about competition. It's like, if there's 20 more of me, that makes me feel great with the amount of passion and desire for Black people being well and doing well. To me, the more the merrier. Now, I say that hoping that it will be the quality, right? Because I'm not saying just have a bunch of mental health professionals out here doing whatever, traumatizing folks. No, but I'm saying, like, for me, there could never be too many or enough Black folks that love and support other Black folks. We need more. We need more. And I feel like we need more folks to get out of that competitive mindset, because we can do more together than in isolation.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like building, because in my mind, what we need really is a Black utopia, because we need to be able to take care of each other. We know what we need, right? So we need our own schools, we need our own hospitals, we need our own doctors, we need our own lawyers, right? And so for me, I feel like that is a huge barrier in this society, is that we are not working well together or collectively because of things like, oh, well, I don't want to do this because she's doing that, or I don't want to ask her for help because she might think this about me. And I feel like we need to have more, conversations about this in particular. And I will say that I feel like that is also a part of white supremacy playing itself out, to keep us divided, to keep us separated, right? Because we can have, different perspectives, we can have different thoughts, we can have differences of opinions, but ultimately, if the goal is the well-being and success of Black folks, we should be able to all work together, because everybody has a role and a part in that. And we don't have to think alike. We don't have to have the same beliefs. We don't even have to have the same religion, but we care about Black folks, and we care about Black folks being well. And so, boom, we can work together.
Yep. I want to address something that you just said, because some of my viewers are like, what does this mean? And so I'm going to be doing this little piece during the conversations we're going to be having, because again, we can't just ignore race. We can't ignore certain topics. And you use the term white supremacy. And so a lot of people may hear that and like, I'm not a white supremacist. We're talking about a mindset that it can impact Black people, Mexican people, white people. There is a certain system that has been set up in our brains, in our minds, and the way we do things because of history. And there are certain things we have to we have to enlighten ourselves. We have to get to that point where we're like, oh, you know what? That's not something that's going to help our society. This is not going to lift each other up. This is not going to embrace one another. And so I really want to encourage you guys, as you're listening to this segment of podcasting, we're going to be talking about a lot. Make sure that you are, one, listening, and two, you're willing to educate yourself on some of the things that we're talking about, and not being, offended by the words.
Defensive.
Yeah.
Listening to understand. Listening to understand, because if you live in America, no matter what race you are, and let's be clear, race is a social construct, but it is what it is. No matter what race you are, you are conditioned in this society, and this society is heavy on anti-Blackness, right? And of course, I could spend 12 hours talking about that specifically, right? And so anti-Blackness has impacted the whole society. So there are Blacks who are participating in that, and maybe they don't understand, right? And maybe they do. And so for me, that's also a passion of mine, to get folks to understand how anti-Blackness and white supremacy has impacted the Black mind.
Yes.
Because it has impacted everyone, and everyone is impacted by it in a different way, right? And so for me, that is a huge part of my practicing of mental health, is to support Black folks in understanding how the anti-Blackness in this world has impacted your mind.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited about the type of business that you develop, and you are connecting with people in so many facets, because we need that. We need that as a people. We need that to help us move forward and not move backwards, and not feeling stuck and feeling hopeless. If people want to connect with you, Keyonia, where do they go? How do they reach you? And are you taking new clients?
Yes, I am. I am taking new clients at the moment. I'm doing a lot of consultation and coaching, although, I do have a few slots for seeing clients in a therapeutic aspect. But right now, I'm really focused on the training and coaching. Nice. Individuals. So I'm doing individuals. I'm also doing providing the same level of training and mental health consultation for organizations. So schools and social service agencies and other agencies that want to work on, clearing the anti-Blackness out of their organization. So that's the simplest way I can say it. And so my website is healingblacksouls.org. That's my website. You can go on my website and send me a message, or, book a free 15-minute consultation to see if I will be someone that you're interested in working with in any of the capacities that I mentioned before. And I have an Instagram, which is healing_black_souls_consulting. So it's Healing Black Souls Consulting on Instagram, and an underscore after each word. And that's how you can find me via email. You can find my website, and you can send me a message. So you can send me a message on the website, on Instagram, or you can email me. My email is connected to my Instagram. And my email is Keyonia@healingblacksouls.org. That's KEYONIA@healingblacksouls.org.
Awesome.
How
Thank
folks can
you
reach me.
so much for being here today. You guys, I hope that your soul was filled today. You know, I hope that you got something from this, you learned something from this, and you are thinking about how you can really pour into yourself, pour into your company, pour into your organization, pour into people that you know, and really educating yourself and finding things to help you heal holistically and really be your best self. So thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast segment. We're really excited. Please share this with somebody, you guys. Do not hog it all for yourself. You know, I always say this is like that chicken noodle soup kind of good, you guys. Pass that around to someone that needs it. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye.